It's a really special privilege to welcome back Rabbi Neil Cooper, our Rabbi Emeritus, who will share words of Torah with us this morning. If you need a source sheet, they are on the corners of the Amud.
The first song there, back in the saddle again. I cannot even express the joy and the pleasure that I have being back. It's been a very long time, and I really have missed all of you, and it's just nice to be home. I know everyone wants to know about Lori, which I'll get to later, but she's on Zoom with us this morning, and I'll get to Lori and her remarkable recovery in a moment. But I want to start with the Parsha today. And if you have the handout that I put outside the sanctuary, I have a bunch of verses here, including one which begins, it comes at the beginning of our Parsha. You can thank you, Paul. Thanks, Len. So the verses that I have a common theme. The theme is crying out to God. The children of Israel are in bondage, and they're not really a people yet. I would suggest that the Jewish people become a Jewish people, at least at the earliest part of it, through their collective suffering and their collective cry out to God. In our parsha this morning, it's Vayhi b'yamim harabim hahem v'yam melech Mitzrayim v'yanchu b'nei Yisrael min ha'avodah v'yizaku v'ta'al shavatam el Adonai min ha'avodah. A long time after the king of Egypt died, number 2 there, the Israelites were groaning under bondage. They cried out, and their cry for help from bondage rose up to God. And God, number 3, I've marked well the plight of my people in Egypt. I've heeded their outcry because of their taskmasters. I'm mindful of their sufferings. This is a theme that we see often. We've seen it before, in fact, even with children, right? The story of Abraham sending out Hagar into the wilderness. Again, God hears the cry of the boy, number 1 there, right? Don't worry, God says. The angels, for God has heeded the cry of the boy where he is. 2 other verses from later in Sefer Shemot. Imaneta aneoto, with respect to the widow and the orphan. If they cry out to me, God forbid they should cry out to me, says God. God forbid. I forbid, right? Because he says, if they cry out to me, I will certainly hear their cries, and you will receive my punishment, he says. You will not, I'm angry with you. If they cry out and you don't respond, I will hear their cries. If a person only has a coat and you take it as a sort of deposit or something he owes you, and you take his coat, that's the only coat or cloak that he has to cover his skin. Where will he sleep? What will he sleep in, says God? If that person cries out to me, I will pay heed, for I am compassionate. Ki chanun ani. A few things strike me here. Most importantly, of course, we cry out in pain, and over again, the Torah tells us God will heed our cry. The other thing that's important to remember here is in none of these instances, in fact, there are no instances in which the cries of the people must come from Jews. This doesn't talk, no one here is Jewish. Even the Jewish people were not Jewish up to this point, right? Nobody here is Jewish, because it doesn't matter. Because the cries of a person, any person, no matter where they are and who they are, their cry that emanates from the deepest part of their soul. That's the part that God hears. In fact, the Ramban, the grandson of Maimonides, makes it a point here. He says, I don't have a translation of it, but he says, if a person cries out, why does it say that God hears all of the voices without regard to their religion or learning? He says, God forbid, that a person would cry out from the pains that he is suffering, and even a person should not think, lo echbo shlomat tzaddik, that I only have like compassion for a tzaddik, God forbid. And that a person who doesn't know, who isn't the tzaddik, who doesn't know the prayers, who doesn't know how to daven, doesn't know Hebrew, that you would think that I would not know hear his prayer. For that reason, he says, Lefichach amar ki chanunani. That's why it says in the Torah, I am compassionate because v'shomea tza'akat kol mitchanen li. I hear the cry of anyone who calls out to me from that place within them. God hears. A couple of weeks ago, if you're a football fan, you watched with horror this situation with the Buffalo Bills and their one of their safeties, Damar Hamlin, who was involved in a routine tackle on at the beginning of the game, and he had a heart attack right on the field. They brought the ambulance on. They resuscitated him before he went into the ambulance. They resuscitated him in the ambulance. A week later, he's out of the hospital, and the doctors are nonplussed. And during this whole time, by the way, he's on the field there, and what do his players, his teammates, and the other team do? They drop to their knees and they pray. So a woman named Ruth Graham is a journalist located in Dallas, but she writes for the New York Times. So she writes about faith and football, and makes the point that football, and she says, this is an example here, this is a great example to prove the point that the NFL, the football league, is really sewn into the fabric. That Christianity really is sewn into the fabric of the football league. That Christianity in general, evangelical Christianity, is part and parcel of the NFL. And she uses as an example Josh Allen, the quarterback of Buffalo, says, "Please pray for our brother," and all of the people on his team, and millions of people around the world are praying for him. Unfortunately, she gets it wrong. This is not Jewish prayer or Christian prayer that a person recites at such a moment. When those players drop to their knees, and when millions of people stop and pray for this young man who is in cardiac arrest, and when you watch, I was watching the announcers, the commentators, and they're like speechless. And one of them says, "I can only pray," and he says that God will be merciful and God will help him to recover. And the other commentator says, "Amen." Amen, he said. Okay, amen. Not amen. This is not Christian prayer. This is when a person cries out from the depths of their soul. That's when God hears it. And when the doctors speak about this, and they ask them, they said, first of all, how is he doing? Miraculous, wonderful. He's out of the hospital very quickly. And one question was, did did you know that all these people were praying for Damar Hamlin? And he said, we all felt it. We felt the love, we felt the prayers, and they all helped. And then one of the journalists that was questioning the doctor says, do you think he'll ever return to professional football? And the doctor said, I don't see any reason why not. God hears the cries of those who cry out from the depths of their soul. And obviously this resonated particularly deeply with me and with my family. As you know, Lori was diagnosed with a brain tumor when we were in Israel. She had the surgery there. And about 4 weeks after the surgery, our doctors had cleared her for travel, and we were coming back here to recuperate a little bit and to enjoy the love and friendship that we have here in our community. But by the time the plane landed, there was clearly something wrong. There were complications due to the injury which was caused by the tumor, and basically the exquisite balance that probably only the doctors are aware of, the exquisite balance of hormones and chemicals within us that work so perfectly, so that when we have, let's say, an infection, our entire body defends itself against the assault by creating hormones and various adrenal chemicals. But when your adrenal glands are not working because they don't get the right message from the pituitary gland, which is injured by a tumor, the body begins to shut down, doesn't know what to do. And essentially that's what happened. So from the time we returned from Israel about 3 weeks ago until yesterday, Lori was in the hospital, and thank God she came home yesterday, and she's remarkable. As I wrote a few weeks ago, I want to thank everyone for your love and your support and your prayers. I want to tell you that there isn't any, people said, tell me what we can do. What can we do for Lori? What's her, I said, I don't know. There's nothing you can do, but would you pray for her? Just pray. Lori's doctors in Israel were surprised when she left by the very quick recovery that she made from the surgery itself. But I will tell you that we felt those prayers, that it's not something that one says that one says as if it is some sort of an idiom, some sort of a catchphrase, pray for me. We felt the prayers. I believe God heard those prayers because these were not, I didn't ask you to say a Misha Berach necessarily. Misha Berach's good. But Misha Berach doesn't, I don't think, reach God in the same way. When you pray from your soul, from the depths of your heart, when you want that feeling and that message to be heard, then God hears it. And don't think that those prayers are small. It says in the Pirkei Avot, you should do a mitzvah, kala kemitzvah chamura. You should do even something small, a small effort, a small gesture, as if it's something big. Why? Because you never know what's big and what's small anyways. I said to people, thank you for praying for, and people said, it's nothing. It's not nothing. To you, it's nothing. To me, it's not nothing. It's something. And I believe that God hears those prayers. And I believe that God still hears the prayers and is helping Lori even now in her recovery. There's a wonderful story that I wanted to share with you, which is about a man in, you may have heard it, a man in Center City trying to find a parking place, all right? If you're telling a story about a man who tries to find a parking place in Center City, it could be a very long story, right? He's driving around, it's nothing. The parking lot's filled, the street's filled. This guy has a meeting. And this is like a really important meeting. He has to be there. Everybody's going to be, he's going to, lose a tremendous amount if he doesn't get to this important meeting. And finally, out of desperation, he calls to God. He says, God, listen, I haven't been the best of your servants, I know. But I promise you, he says, if you can find me a parking place, I'll pay my Federation pledge. I'll make the donation to the temple. I'll start going to shul on Shabbos. I'll keep kosher. As he's saying this, the guy is driving around right in front of the building that he wants having the meeting, and a car pulls out just as he's coming by. He says, never mind, God, I found one. Did God find that parking place or not? I can't prove it, but I think so. And I think that whether or not God found the parking place for that man looking for a parking place, although we can't prove it, we can have some faith and some belief that in our moment of greatest need, God will be there for us. That's what faith is all about. I can't tell you that without it, Lori would not be improving and would not be doing well in her recovery. I can't say that it's because of God that the surgery went so well and everything seems to be healing. I can't prove it, but I certainly believe it. And I want to thank you all for your prayers and for your support. Even though I have not been here physically, I feel that I have been with you, and I feel that you have been with me. And I'll tell you that as we left the hospital yesterday and came home, I asked the doctor a question. I said, so, do you think that with Lori's recovery, she'll be able to play professional football? He said, I don't see any reason why not. So. Shabbat Shalom, page 184.
Thank you so much for those inspiring and beautiful words, Rabbi Cooper. And know that we are all continuing to send those prayers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a full recovery for Lori. The Chatzi